My mom messaged me in the afternoon. I think you're working too hard. It's Friday. It's Thursday. It's not Friday. So anyway, welcome back. This time for real. It is Friday. Still excited. Artist Journal, January 10th, 2025, broadcasting from somewhere deep in the noetic sphere. Noesis, intellect, mind is what they call it in ancient Greek. There might be more translations. There's an old translation. No, there's old spelling of nous. There's N-O-O-S and there's N-O-U-S. N-O-O-S is the old spelling. As far as I understand, maybe it makes it sound like I know more than I do. I know limited ancient Greek. I know the important words. Some of the important words. Anyways, let's begin. Kind of a controversial beginning here. Kind of the person of the moment, love them or hate them. I was going to say love them or hate them. Love them or hate them, it is the person of the moment, causing all sorts of mayhem. And I liked what, this is a collaboration. This is a Mython, as they're called. Collaboration between Baziah, of course. Many of you will recognize the artist who has done many portraits, and Myth. And I kind of love what they did, actually, putting all of the politics aside. It's quite brilliant. Again, you're taking probably the most, discussed person I would, other than maybe the president of the U.S., the incoming president, maybe more so right now. Right? So it's kind of an interesting choice of subject matter. It's a nice execution. I was just like, as far as, Baziah works on his phone. It looks like it's mostly Baziah construction, but hard to say. And again, there's one of the cool things about digital art, I would argue, is how fast it can be, right? So, there is this kind of dream that exists in my mind of a real-time response to the news narrative created by artists. And I'd argue digital enables that because you can work really fast. You can use AI, and just the tools themselves, for whatever reason, you don't run out of cadmium red while you're painting, for example. You don't need to set everything up and have the space and go to your studio. It's a faster business, so to speak, digital art. And I would say that's definitely a virtue. And it enables, just like, say, doing this show daily, different sort of things start to happen, different observations, and it becomes a different kind of show a little bit. So the art, when all of a sudden you can work that fast, that will change the nature of the art, the nature of the subject matter, the ability to respond, and arguably the role it can play in society, one could argue. So again, like, you think if this was an oil painting, who knows how long this took, by the way. This could have taken weeks, for all I know. I don't know. But it could have taken a few days, maybe even less. Like, we see Myth put out a work basically every day right now, right? We've seen Baziah put out works when he wants to, boom, 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 like daily, right? So it doesn't necessarily need to take longer than a day. So it becomes really interesting, I would argue, from a social point of view, because it's no longer this province of, the museums and the gallery. Let's take a step back and think over the last, the time takes on a different quality in digital, I would argue. And perhaps this is a kind of example of that, not a super example, but a kind of example of this kind of more immediate response to the dominant images in the culture. That is part of the, dream. And because then it becomes part of the conversation potentially, right? Then all of a sudden the possibility exists where it can actually start to respond and actually change, in theory, the narrative. So a fun mission. One could imagine. I mean, it's almost like this William Burroughs-like vision here of sci-fi artists in the future directly implicated, so to speak, in the news narrative. right? And that becomes, but I think that kind of sci-fi Barosian vision of 2025, I was going to say, is our vision. That is our world. That exists. That possibility currently exists. In a sense, this is a manifestation of that kind of, of my kind of Barosian vision of this kind of sci-fi artists, responding to the news narrative. So anyway, a couple of things I want to mention on this. First of all, it's always kind of, Buzaya works on the phone, I might add. As far as I recall, Buzaya paints on the phone. And again, this seems like, if I had to guess, like this is a collaboration. If I had to guess, the Mike Tyson tattoo here, I would say was a myth idea. It's kind of a myth icon. I don't know if it's his idea or not. Who knows whose ideas or what? Who decided? Let's do Elon. What was the name? This is Mythson number 48. Interestingly titled, by the way. Probably keeping consistent. I thought, to be honest, I think the lips are brilliant. It's almost like, they're almost like red, like lipstick, but it doesn't give the appearance of them being too red. Like the coloring is quite brilliant, I would argue. And so what do we see? Again, from an iconographic content perspective, we see Elon Musk, interesting shadow, probably just a layer kind of, doubled and then repeated, and then you just, fill it in with black and then put multiply or 30% opacity, whatever the case may be. We also see him in an Argentinian soccer football jersey, so to speak. Number 10, is that Messi? Not sure who number 10 is, but that seems like a famous soccer jersey number. AFA, maybe Argentinian Football Association. Now, of course, just from a political perspective, for context, of course, Elon Musk and Javier Milei, a lot of compliments there, hardcore libertarian, another super controversial figure, right? But, and what I love about this is it's not trying to moralize to us of, as I've mentioned before, it's ambiguous. It's not saying good, bad, right? I wouldn't have started with this if it had either of those because it's too obvious, right? It's, So, as my friend Mark Liam Smith always says, and I've said this a million times, and now the words are escaping me, but it's not too obvious. It's not didactic. That is the word. That would be too didactic if it was like good, bad. I mean, you could argue maybe there's some. You could argue a touch of it being considered good. Elon the Warrior. Maybe with the Mike Tyson, but I don't think these artists are that obvious. Also with the football jersey. Interesting kind of sports references, really, two different ones. I would argue this is the Mike Tyson reference here, and here maybe a Messi reference. So maybe it is positive, but if it is, it's not didactic. It's not hit you over the head, and it's more just, I would argue, a portrait of, a personality that is kind of dominating the news narrative right now. So just an interesting beginning here, provocative and kind of an exciting image, however you feel politically on it, right? A contemporaneous image, like an image of the true present of the last, as Ballard would say, of the last 5 minutes, so to speak. So very interesting. Edition of 1, I like how they're selling it on object. 20 Tezos is the beginning bid, and here it begins. $25 is the opening lot here. And how much time do we have left in this auction? Only 4 hours and 56 minutes. So I will upload this as fast as possible, maybe to the chagrin of Walu. But yeah, so this could fly under the radar. If it stays this low, I may myself put in a bid. Interesting work there from both those artists. Here's also the myth on Rodeo. Nightmares with the Myth, Chapter 3. And we continue to have this kind of suggestive forehead here in the Myth Nightmares. A little bit of humor, in a sense, in that forehead or brow, however you want to put it. I don't think we looked at this one. It's almost like a video game with like how many characters, how many myths do you have left? We have the myth kind of bleeding, but here it's a woman. Yeah, we have the myth, kind of pink and green, which I think are Argentinian kind of colors, if I'm not mistaken. We have TM, trademark, or the myth, maybe a bit of a pun there, perhaps. And a digital painting looks like Procreate, and kind of like this darker sky that we've kind of seen in the last, let's say, year and a half, versus the older MS Paint works that are just usually a solid kind of brighter blue, and the trademark clouds. Beautiful composition as ever, always interesting color. Something to mention on this. Another kind of deadline for you here. The top one collector. Read carefully. The top one collector will receive my super rare Genesis, Life is Death. The top two will receive a gift, link in the comments. So the link is, of course, to here, buried down here, and I brought that up. So right now, I think it's, who's the top collector? Aw Heck at 50. So what is that, $20? So you might be able to get this Myth Genesis work, this gorgeous work here, this poet, really the myth, Bizaya too. But Life is Death, the first work on super rare, you can get if you put in if you buy the most editions of the myth on Rodeo. So interestingly, wild, a true poet, both of them out of Argentina. But as we look at the myth here, and Bizaya, of course, let's look at Bizaya's work very quickly. For those that don't know, who I used to call 3A, 5A, 1A, before the wonderful people, including Bizaya, corrected me on how to say Bizaya's name. This is Bizaya over here. And yes, as you see, all of these, controversial figures, historical figures, pop culture figures, has a great collector base on Tezos. And let me show you some of the old works too, just quickly. Another poet out of Argentina here. Yeah, these are the early works, these early paintings. Fabulous works here. There's some classic, like these kind of like almost basketball works are very classic here. And sometimes, sometimes there's so many great artists on Tezos that they can be forgotten sometimes. So you can still get deals sometimes. Like here, this one here. Look at this one. I think, I have this one. But, some of them are like super expensive. Some you can kind of waltz in there and, for 9 Tezos, you just got this edition of 17 from 2021, right? That's pretty cool. This is a classic. Yeah, I own one of these, edition of 10. Just really, really cool work by Bizaya. Really cool artist. So to get us started here, and of course, our friend, the myth, awesome. Shall we look at our comments here? A couple of comments here, and let's just go. Limby Nook, can you mix and blend digital oil? So, digital oil. Yeah, so it took me about a couple of hours to figure out what this meant. I came back to it a couple of times, and then I realized that the question is, can you mix colors in digital? And yes, the tech is advanced enough that colors blend with each other. So what are good paintings? I'd say Procreate is really good. You can import brushes, like say the Myths work there, and also Photoshop. Like there are some really good brushes, and they have, like I remember, if you use the iPad and Photoshop, like there's some Keith Haring brushes that are really awesome. There's a lot of brushes. So it's kind of like the world is your oyster out there. And yes, that was the real sense of my ambiguous question. Thanks. You're welcome. It took me, I struggled. I almost was just kind of gave a generic, like, yes, thank you for the comment. But I figured it out, Limby Knook. Rosacho, I almost got you, didn't I? I think Rosacho did get me with his comment last episode. What I'm trying to emphasize is that while the heart of all is the art, let's be real, without collectors, flippers, devs, reply guys, and people like you making videos about all this, none of this would still be here. Yeah, in a sense, like, I think it's an important point that, because in a sense, like, what Rosacho was writing, I think earlier was like, look at all these, charlatans in a sense, right? But being kind of sarcastic about it. Because I think what Rosacho is bringing up an important point. For the artist, the important thing is that you're selling your work and that you're kind of making your living and developing your art, right? And kind of making your way through the world as an artist, and selling is, it's like a business, and selling your art is part of being an artist from the get-go, right? It's a business. You go back to Cimabue, you go back to Giotto, Leonardo was a hustler, okay? All of these people, it's a business. So, you want it to go in the best hands possible, but ultimately you want to sell the work. So I think it's a point taken. Sure, maybe most of us are here for the art, but some aren't. Maybe they're in it for a quick flip. And I've been charitable to the flippers, actually, in the past, I would dare say. Or maybe they're drawn to the technology. Who knows? And that's all valid. Every part of the ecosystem is important, but it's just my 2 cents. Yeah, I guess... But what I was kind of highlighting, I think, last episode was Rodeo. There is a crypto culture. And from a personal point of view, I personally like to keep a bit of an arm's length from it. I realize I'm a part of that culture kind of by default. But there's also but I don't identify in a sense with what I loosely call mainstream Ethereum culture. And so my concern is when I see something like Rodeo supposedly blowing up, I kind of think it's starting to already peak, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe it comes back even stronger. Again, a week in this, business is a year in other businesses, so to speak. But my concern is again, it's sort of like Shape never seemed to take off, did it? And why didn't it take off? Because I didn't get the sense that there was a culture of loving the art. And you could say, well, who cares? And fair enough. In the short term, yeah. But in the long term, I don't even know the platform. Was it Highlight XYZ? I didn't even know the platform for Shape. And I don't even know if they're still around or if it kind of collapsed or whatever happened to it, right? And I'd say that with no judgment to Shape and XYZ. But it was an example of, something that was, as Woman NFT put it, was kind of pushed by the so-called cabal, however you want to put that, where you feel like you're getting these influencers and these marketers and people being paid, which we've just seen a million times, which is, again, why I like to promote things, even though they're not necessarily disclosing that they are, being paid to promote a platform, right? And we see this all the time in the crypto sphere. I think there should be disclosure. If you're being paid by a platform, you should have to disclose it. I think it's a legal thing, frankly. And it doesn't get disclosed. So again, I like to keep an arm's length. When I start to see too much of that, loose Ethereum culture of influencers and people paying all this money and it not getting disclosed, so I think seemingly, I say, I'm not sure that's going to stick. And then it's paying 17 cents and everything. I think I've given a fair assessment. I've really gone out of my way to provide a fair assessment of Rodeo. And the more I think about it, the less I put it this way. A week ago, I think at peak intensity, it was sort of I think a lot of people felt FOMO. A lot of people started minting. I feel like a week later, the FOMO, I think I said it last episode, I'm kind of glad I never did, and kind of looking forward to making some more pixel art, as Pixel Lord was saying, putting some more pixel art on Bitcoin. Putting a work up on Object. And a final thing on this, I think it's important that Object, that it is supported. It's been really, 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 really good to artists, really since it started, I would argue. Artists have been paid. They keep their fees super low. They seem to be about the art, right? I think they've proven that over the years. So I think also as artists, it's important to kind of, put it this way, just even if it's out of purely self-interest. I don't think Object's going to go out of business here, but I think it's important that we support them and make sure that they don't go out of business because it's in our interest. And also they've been good to us is sort of where I'm at here. So yeah, so my 2 cents as well. Thank you for the comment, Rosacho. Love having the artists comment on the show. It's an honor. Other comments here. Artie Hands, happy Friday. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Yes, as my mom said, working too hard, maybe. Anyways, appreciate the humor here. Great show as always. Thank you, Cody. Great to hear. Ile, by the way, happy Friday. As I said, I realized an hour later after public. It literally was an hour later. I was like, did I say happy Friday today? Rorich, thank you. Awesome to hear from Rorich. Just a true of the great vintage collector there, as this image greatly illustrates. Peter the Roman, great to hear from you. The week has been Pocobelli week, indeed. Well, thank you. Glad to hear. Glad you're enjoying the show. Hamilton, wow, what a special mentality the artist has. And I wonder, well, probably referring to Rat Cloak there, indeed. And what a great piece, indeed. Yeah, a special artist there, Rat Cloak. Alan Survey, as I always like to say, my kind of guilty pleasure Twitter account who doesn't get nearly the attention that Alan Survey deserves. A young gallery, more out of the contemporary art, I think a contemporary art collector, and out of that scene, kind of, I don't know if he's jet set, but he could be, right? He might be. Our kind of, let's call her loosely, our jet set reporter here. What would you call it? Okay, let's just read the tweet here. A young gallerist asked me this. Asked me whether that we were in a slowdown or in a new era. So a young gallerist asks Alain Servet, who keeps tabs on the scenes, goes to fairs, if it's a slowdown or a new era. Alain Servet, I answered I thought it was a new era and not for the best. Now, I think it is for the best, personally. I'm thrilled. I think there should, to a certain degree. I want artists to make money in the contemporary art scene too. But we've been kind of, a prisoner, so to speak, of the contemporary art scene for decades of, speaking of cabals, frankly, and loose, but it's sort of like we've been lorded over of what we're supposed to like for decades. It's a lot of the reason why I started this show is because it's like I'm sick and tired and I'm not going to take this anymore. Okay, and so I do think it's for the best. I think finally we need a new era. We need some creative destruction here. Let's continue. Let's continue. If you want to know why, listen to this podcast with Peter Freeman and Miguel Ebro. So I'll have to check that out. Very interesting. Amadon, back to Rodeo. Artist rights matter. Just because we've always had to sign everything away to use platforms doesn't make it customary or right to keep doing so. I kind of like the fight that Abaddon is going on here. I'm kind of all for it. Like, I'm kind of applauding this the whole way. Like, because it's sort of like, so many artists just feel powerless, right? So I applaud this fight. And happy to highlight this. That's kind of all I have to say. Finally on this, though, again, as we kind of, think about this whole issue that's come up, in a sense, I think it's just more reason to develop your own social power. Because, again, I put a work on Bitcoin. It sold in like 8 or 9 minutes. That's fabulous. And I put it on Gamma, but I don't think, I could have just put it on, it wasn't because it was on Gamma that they discovered it. It's because I put it on Twitter, right? Or X. So I'm kind of all about, independence here. And, and then because if as artists, we're all independent, then the platforms have to cater to us, not us to the platform. So I'm just totally in favor and will happily highlight everything Amadon has to say on this that I come across. Continuing on, Sonic, is Object.com over? Future is Rodeo? What do y'all think of it? I highly doubt it, is sort of my take on it, at least at this point. And I've already said, my 2 cents in Rosacho's comment there on, I think we need to actually make sure we're supporting Object as artists and collectors, frankly, and at this point. Frankly, I think Rodeo's peaked, is kind of my take on it. I don't know. You kind of look up here. This is kind of a nice loose gauge as you look at the tabs up here. In my world, it's like we had peak maybe 2 or 3, maybe 2 shows ago, where it was almost half was Rodeo, maybe even more. Mech.txt answering Sonic. I left the platform about 3 days ago. Happy to talk about it in public or DM about my personal take thus far. Maybe I'll see. Maybe I'll see. I don't have a guest next week, I don't think. And just make sure my screen is getting back on here. There we go. I don't have. Maybe I'll see if Mech's free. Okay, but let's see about my I left the platform about 3 days ago. Happy to talk in public about it. My personal take, being there since closed beta, whom I've personally been invited by Saturnial himself, who is a good friend of mine. And for Object, as long as there's genuine love of art is there, we got thousands of years of historical record as a collective species there to prove how robust the love of art and collecting is, the higher the chance of the platform to survive. Personally, I'd say it's more of a downtide as opposed to an apocalyptic occurrence for Object. I agree. High tide will come. I already see people minting on Object, like more already, and collecting. High tide will come when people realize art in its singular form and hyper high pace is not compatible. Well, I'm not so sure about that, but interesting. I guess we'll leave that one open. Here's this is oil on canvas that Ripcash did here, interestingly. So we saw this, and we saw how, how I think had the big roller and using some sort of pipe and some sort of 3D printing. Quite a novel, way to create oil on canvas of all things. So Ripcash keeping things interesting there as we continue into the works. And let's go here. Here is Zozo, A Tree's Dream. A beautiful work here. So just a rad artist, and you gotta love this kind of odd crop. I mean, it's kind of like if Zozo didn't do it, nobody would have done it. This is what's kind of really amazing about Zozo is the originality meets really amazing aesthetic experience, right? Like if you want like a cutting edge digital art experience, I would not hesitate to say, go check out Zozo. Actually, as I have in the past, don't forget Plant Computer. I remember being in Brazil, hanging out with my friend who had invited me there in June. And I was like, just so you know what we're up to over here, I sent him Plant Computer. And he was talking about Plant Computer for days. He's like, I can't believe what you guys are up to over here. This is incredible. How is this a secret? And this is someone who doesn't even really go to museums or galleries. He saw Plant Computer and he couldn't stop talking about it. Right? So, yeah, Zozo. Edition of 15, 8 Tezos, and 4 gone. Copa de Frutas, 1 of 1, with this kind of new style, 12 Tezos by Nuv 1914. And here you see a beautiful still life here, using these blue gradients, almost this kind of chrome sort of feel and look to it here, this 3D brush and everything. Just a wonderful artist. And let's not forget this little kind of juxtaposition, almost I think you call it a predella, like in those kind of medieval paintings where they'll have the little pictures of the saints. I think that's a predella. Let's look very quickly because I know we're going long here. Predella, medieval painting. We'll see if I'm right. Predella. Yeah, it's a predella. I had the spelling wrong, but it is a predella. Yeah, you see this? So we'll learn something here. You see that at the bottom there? That's the predella. Let me make sure I'm right here. It's the lowest part of an altarpiece, sometimes forming a platform or step and the painting or sculpture along it at the bottom of an altarpiece. So there you go. It's almost like a predella that we saw there at the bottom of Nuv's work. Right down there. What I am calling a predella of sorts. Let's continue. Really cool work here by Nuv 1914. Rama. Only 5 minted here. This is on Rodeo. I don't know what it is about this work that really, like, all this stuff, like, this is some pretty avant-garde digital art. Like, and this is someone that's been making art regularly at least since 2012. I think we had Nov 1914 on the space. It was an awesome space. I need to upload. Someone messaged me like, "Where's the Martin Bruce space?" I just sent it to them. Like, I need to get this stuff on Spotify. It's very, very rich content. So anyway, another work by Nov 1914. Here's Cedar Plank on Object, tech support, edition of 1. I think sent to Islay. And then what happened? So there was 10,000. And then 9,999 burned. Almost like a Haiti rocket type of selling situation there. So interesting piece here. Again, looking like it's using some sort of maybe, kids, painting software, keeping the what looks like the toolbox here, or some of the color, palettes and whatnot. Here's kind of like a muscular person working with the noise, like I guess you'd call them JPEG artifacts, right? Working with the artifacts that you get when you make things large when they're not designed that way, and kind of turning a bug into a feature here, and then maybe exporting as GIF. Who knows? I don't even know if it goes that far. This is probably just a screenshot of using this software. Quite beautiful, isn't it? Yeah. So not exactly sure tech support. Just kind of who put an offer of 333 August ground. So Tub Brap. Here's another work with some almost looking like transparency here. Another just kind of wild work here by Cedar Plank, also known as Struble Waffles. And what's interesting here is you can see, I don't know if you can see this. I'm not sure you can see this. Let me see if I can open this larger. And make it even larger. See this? You see this? Like, this is like a large pixeled file and then exported as like, let's call it, if I had to guess here, this is maybe, if you look at these like original pixels, I would guess like maybe, I don't know, 600, 800 pixels, but it looks like it's being turned into something much larger. Perhaps when you look at, say, this thing right there. I don't know if you can see that. That right there. So anyways, just more kind of mysteries here. Pixels in pixels is really what I'm seeing here. Because you see there, I guess we missed it, but I think you saw what I was talking about. You see it there? It's almost like each pixel has 10 pixels within it. So interesting. Almost as if this was a small image, then you put it into, let's say, Photoshop, for example, and then you export it at 5 times the size, but keep it as a GIF, so you retain the pixelation, for example. Anyways, interesting work here from Waffles, Tub Brap, and I got to speed up here a little bit. Neon Monk putting a 70 Tezos offer on this edition of 3. So nice work there. Jake Studios, Ritual Caught on GIF. So continuing the GIF JPEG rituals here, edition of 1, 44 Tezos from Jake Studios. So kind of making a nice series here, and there we see the shiny GIF with Jake Studios, stream of consciousness, more stream of consciousness really. Art, in a sense you could put Waffles and Jake Studios in the same show if you thematically as stream of consciousness, perhaps. And I kind of like this fire thing here too. It might not even mean anything, and almost this green river of sorts with skulls in it underneath, and classic upside down clouds, pixelated clouds. They're beautiful work from Jake Studios. Here is Tornado Rodriguez, Intrusive Thoughts at Bedtime. So I don't think we've seen this. So a work by Tornado on Rodeo, 92 mints here, and kind of a fun work. And again, kind of has that underground comics kind of vibe. And another, what looks like an improvisation. You see the branch growing through the window here and sleeping at night. And the monsters coming from under the bed, seemingly. What was the title of this again? Intrusive Thoughts at Bedtime. Sometimes the mind has its own agenda. Beautiful. So great work by Tornado. I thought this was pretty cool. DeCracy Joffrey. Fascinating how every day we come closer to this. This might be an older work. But kind of like the opening image, I feel like it's quite topical. It's kind of automatic, you know. I think we're already here. Just it hasn't completely. It's just not a comprehensive like in terms of factories being turned into robotic factories. It just hasn't spread to all factories yet. But I think these factories exist, from my understanding. DeCracy Joffrey. So fascinating work. Amanda Homum. I can't believe anything I see on the internet anymore, and I love that write up. And just a cool internet artwork here, a kind of illustration. It's a GIF. How's it doing? I guess just posted this morning or yesterday morning. So could use a little love here. I love this. Can't believe anything I see on the internet anymore. That could be a title or even the name of a show. Really awesome. And these kind of computers leaking out information. Again, kind of very topical, isn't it? So just cool. Seba Sestero out of Buenos Aires here with some illustrations and kind of more of these kind of psychological illustrations. This on Instagram. Here is Rosetio, who we're hearing from in the comments, and I love this. You know, it's kind of, it looks to me like every part of the GIF is being repeated here. You could also do a completely static version of this, and I just think that's super cool. Look at that. And again, you could make prints of this, and I think they're really rad, like in terms of as a concept, how to do, you want to do a physical of a GIF? There you go, right? Beautiful color, by the way, this dark gray, yellow, and white. A very nice combination. This is beautiful. This is Juana Pedro. I couldn't find, there's no link, so I couldn't find it. And so, yeah, but really nice piece on Rodeo. Kind of looks like it may have AI when you look over there at the top and the bottom. Kind of looks like, you know, I think it's Gozo, where it's kind of a mix. Kind of looks like a mix of AI and painting. I'm not sure. You know, you look down here, kind of seems like there's definitely some AI in here. But I'm not sure it's only, I don't know if it's just raw AI. I think this is painting and AI. So very interesting work here. Hybrid, seemingly. Here's Ranixtier. Cool kind of gradients here. Kind of a different feel here. Almost going with more volume. In a sense, expanding. Here's another one. Kind of expanding the space in the canvas here. So just nice piece. Beautiful color as ever. And really even like that little gradient. That nice touch at the top. And here too. So cool experimentation from Ranixtier. This is on Instagram. Here's Francois Gamma on Rodeo. Interesting. I guess you'd call this like an animated pixel art abstract, perhaps. TR1, TR3, perhaps, or tree. Cool work. 100 mints. So that is 100 times 17 cents. Is that $17? It's $17. Not bad. I mean, for artists like Francois Gamma, kind of does digital stuff, puts out several works a day oftentimes, it's not a crazy place to be. So again, it also depends what kind of artist you are. Gio Mariani, Mirror Mirror. Love this work. Love it's almost got a phone ratio here in terms of the canvas ratio or size. And just an awesome pixel artist. I don't know if any of these are being minted or if they're older, but it's just great to see Gio Mariani on the scene here. Put out some works on Tezos recently. Here's Cap'n on Rodeo, Glitchland's Citadel. And this looks like a still. Oh no, it's moving up here. Yeah. So poetic. The very poetic artist, Cap'n here, kind of a sci-fi cowboy here. Very just, again, let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. Very poetic pixel art here. I think we have another one too. 316 minted. So that adds up. That's almost, that's $55, $60. So that's pretty good. The other one, 132. So maybe getting like, let's call it 20. What's 13 times 17? I don't know, $22 if I had to guess. So let's just actually bring this up large. 316. And again, kind of this kind of rodeo in what looks like kind of a sci-fi landscape. Nice color palette as ever. Cool animation too. Here's Gogolitis maybe a preview here of some galactic work. Maybe it's come out already. I don't know. Kind of looking like doing stars. Beautiful work by Gogolitis. This was interesting. This is Stippen Pixel and Angel Franco. And look at this. So choose a creature. Let me make this large. So, I'm not sure. There we go. Isn't this interesting? Choose a creature. We'll look at, so it's an interactive artwork. And we're discussing interactive artworks with Noah Pred on the Spaces. And this idea of, interaction and the challenges that can be for platforms. Choose a creature. So just interesting work here. Generative pixel art work. I think it's generative art by Stippen Pixel and Angelos Franco. And here is E-Boy. A beautiful work here. This is on Rodeo. So pixel art pioneers, E-Boy, a duo, I believe. And let's see, 204 minted. So again, that's probably $34, not so bad. And I think they put out a couple. Here's another one, and 120. So it kind of adds up. Again, if you're bringing in $100 a day as an artist, you're kind of bringing in a salary. So let's see what happens here. But again, you put E-Boy one of ones on object or editions. You have to ask also what that would bring. Armelk, Pixel Morning, SMV, the first Pixel Miniverse. Not sure what Armelk is doing here, but I thought I'd highlight it. It kind of looks interesting. The first Pixel Miniverse. So pretty cool. That just posted that yesterday. This was interesting too. An artist called Lycorex. This is, and just waiting for my screen to come back on here. There we go. It's called Hamburger, computer drawing using Petsky character set. I've seen a lot of ASCII in Petsky, and it's hard to actually make it original and interesting. This is pretty cool. It kind of really evokes the video game vibe, but it's still done with like Petsky and ASCII. Like, this is really cool. And even the way that, it curves here, but you keep getting the gray kind of going over the outline. We were talking about coloring outside the lines. I mean, it's kind of another way of doing it, isn't it? And again, you put this kind of, you don't often see this in physical. Frankly, you don't often see it digital quite like this. You start doing this as physical as well, that becomes incredibly interesting, if you ask me. Start experimenting with that. Here is Mason the Third, Uchuzen Hyperdeck. So here, cool kind of glitch ROM from Mason the Third, kind of monochromatic grays, edition of 1. And that is 60 Tezos. Here is, and Sachu, I think is the name of the artist. Listen to this. Like really nice, like Detroit kind of vibes. Detroit strings. $20.80 sexy. So, I think this was burned. I thought there were different editions. So here's another one, edition of 20. Was the other an edition of 1, just out of curiosity? No, it was an edition of 20. So changing the colors here. I thought there was actually a different mix. I thought it was like an A-side and a B-side. So cool vibes. That nice kind of house. Feels like authentic Detroit. Like really nice. As we ease into the weekend here. Beat produced by Sachu. Wow, I could just let that keep playing. So, Sachu, let me make sure I'm following them. Exciting work. Yes, I am. That's how I found them, actually, in the notifications there. Very exciting work there. Jesu Pixel Art, knitting. So just a cool pixel art piece here. 61 minted on Rodeo. And so I guess that's like $10. And yeah, just nice little kitten with a snow scene. We love that over here. Continuing on, Exkis. GM, kind of a different, as you see here, I've never really seen quite like this. You know what this looks like to me? This looks like effects on effects, but I'm not positive on that. And maybe even processed after, or like customized, like tailor, where you do effects on effects, you get a certain result, and then going in and maybe doing a little fix here and there. But I really don't know. That is just speculating. Kind of like a skull there. Here's Hermipe. So, super interesting pixel artist, of course, and look at this experimentation, and let's see what it says. Thank you for the warm hospitality. It was a fun thinking. It was like a feast of old stories. And so, putting a red and black version almost like off registration sort of thing. And maybe this was at like a wine. So, doing all sorts of collaborations here. And this looks like some sort of old horse, I think, is what's going on here. Interesting. And you look at that off-registration pixel art. Super interesting. Also works on the phone, I believe. Here's another person that works on the phone. I'm pleased to say, Element Lee. Great experimental pixel artist here. And seems to be playing with the visuality of text, is what I would call that. Playing with things, I remember there's the piece called Signifier and Signified. I think is playing with this idea of where image goes into text, and text, ultimately text is image on a certain level, right? It is made of image when we read it. So playing with that whole, again, what I call the visuality of text, I think I called an episode that. Kitakata by Renki, continuing to keep it interesting here, the red and black, kind of the morphine distortion here and shapes. Edition of 1, not listed. And here, let's see if we can fix things, Kodanekazono. This is on Object, actually. And here, cool work, found on Instagram. A nice juxtaposition here of really different kind of visual experiences, whether it's the blowing bubbles or the hard pixelation, really hard contrast here. Hard contrasts is really what this is. You could call it a Kodanekazono show, hard contrast, can't you? This one's 2 minutes and 5 seconds. This is by a few people, Kanik Zapata and Enrique Cartaxo, or Augurs. So I'm going to have to kind of run through it a bit. But just a faint afterglow of that day. But just to give you a taste. Paul, who is a ghost, bought this 125 Tezos. Nice sale. Sorry, I should have had that maximized. Apologies to the artists here. There we go. So pretty cool collab from from Kanik Zapata and Enrique Cartajo, also known as Augurs. Here's Klaus, composition 419. Oh my God, 419 Klaus. Incredible. So definitely a different thing going on here. We see a brain and a couple of scanners of some kind, not sure. Interesting piece. Edition of 1, available for 21 Tezos. Here is Gino. More cool kind of Friday vibes here. Very nice textures. Pretty cool work. A little bit of sun. So you can see the whole thing on object.com. And how apropos, Noasis, the name of the series. So very interesting. Timenta, Sun and Warp language. Interesting. Edition of 30 for 5 Tezos. Here is Elby with some cool palm trees. Never get tired of palm trees. Great textures here and everything as we, again, waltz into the weekend. Peace of mind, indeed. Edition of 10 for 5 Tezos. Ex-Mortal. Edition of 9. This looks sold out. So just doing wonderfully here, Ex-Mortal. Troika. and looking like a flower in bloom in monochromatic grays, interestingly. Cool work there. Here is Klaus again, composition 361. So this might be older. This is October 16th. Maybe I saw this on the timeline. So another really nice piece. I probably missed that how many days ago? I guess that would have been 40 days ago. I think I missed this one. So nice work there, 21 Tezos. And here's Polygon 1993, kind of a big account on X. First Rodeo, and there, so the first piece on Rodeo, 974 mints for this. Kind of looks like, I don't know if this is from a movie. Probably most of you probably know the reference here. Quite a few, so $170 for 1,000 mints about. 3 concrete spheres in a garden. This is Absurdity. Cool work. Let's see if I brought that up larger. And this is on Rodeo as well. So cool. Looks like using the Let's Glitch It's camera and circuit bent camera. Exactly. Edition of, or 48 minted so far. So nice piece there. Also Walk Horses. So there you can kind of see the horse. A digital artwork by Walk. And there looks like there's 2. So this is 5 Tezos at auction. And here is Santiago on Rodeo, an untold story of crypto art. So a AI artwork, I think. This is an AI artwork on Rodeo, 36 minted. And here is Yoain, Fisher's number 4, and 562. Yoain doing spectacular. This series is awesome. So, again, that's maybe close to $100, maybe a little more. Maybe about $100, 500 times 17 cents. But we got 564, so maybe $100. Nice piece. Again, AI artwork. You know, this isn't the AI artwork you kind of see when you go to the museums and you talk about AI. You'll see like Rennie Anadol. Let's continue. Refik Anadol, I believe is the name. No Hygiene, also here. Refik Anadol. So this is No Hygiene, and keeping it weird, I think deserves the award for, you know, and I say that in a loving way. I was going to say Weirdo of the Year, or at least Weird Art of the Year. Let's put it that way. I mean it lovingly, No Hygiene, this brilliant artist. It's not easy to be this kind of weird, but let's call a spade a spade. This is weird. And that's why I show it. I mean, it's pretty darn, if No Hygiene wasn't making it, nobody would be making it. Scommer with some beautiful work here. Look at that. Yeah, it looks like a forest landscape. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. From Scomra, 37 minted only. Here is another work by Scomra for 0.01, The Three Sisters of Fate. So Scomra really hitting it out of the park. Also, again, this kind of, holy grail of sorts where you use AI as your launch pad. And I think actually Scomra uses AI the whole way through, if I'm not mistaken. But really has a process. It's not just like a one pressing a button here, but using AI as a compositional tool, but also now for textures here and everything. I mean, this is stunning, right? Cool title too, and nice, the colors. The Three Sisters of Fate. So Scomra doing awesome. Love the title of this. Art Thief Steals Your Soul. And there, that almost looks like Elon there. And look at that face. Look at these textures. And there's the Art Thief. Look at those edges. Look at that in the background and kind of a solid and contrasting with the textured sky there. Brilliant. As we go into the physicals, Parsa Mostagim. Nice piece here. And there's maybe a preparatory drawing, perhaps. Acrylic and ink on canvas. So showing the process here. Very cool. There's a bit of a Dali feel to it. This definitely has a Magritte feel to it. This is Machine, Child Eating a Pigeon. Seems to be a reproduced Salvador Dali painting, Freud's Polymorph. Bulgarian child eating a rat from 1939. Baby model. That's funny. And yeah, interesting. So a baby eating a pigeon. That's hilarious. Beautiful actual work here by there. Okay. Continuing on. Bondozo Bandito, surprise message for the Vandal Babe. So Bondozo Bandito with another work here. Pretty interesting piece. Kind of larger work. Incredibly prolific artist. Moto Hero. Playing with pinks here in these kind of surreal sci-fi drawings. Another brilliant artist, I think, out of Japan. Another one of these LA works, Martin Lukash, I think is how you'd pronounce it. Look at these textures. Very nice painterly. It's not gallery posting, that one. Even down here. Super interesting. And here's Babachik Matiha, the Master of Werewolves. This is 2025, and fascinating to see this artist, their work in 2025, just continuing these themes of almost like the Transformers figure, and just exploring it. Julia Wachtel, The Space Complexity of an Algorithm. So more out of the contemporary art world, playing with Google+. I guess it's 2017. That explains it. Old Facebook, hard juxtapositions, and cool work here. Oil and acrylic on canvas. Plays with hard juxtapositions. And that's your show, my friends. So have a nice weekend again. And I'm not sure if I'll do a show tomorrow. May take a break here. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Until next time, take care.